Hey YouTube, this is a response video. I don't know if we do them. Somebody commented on, I think, a video for this, asking about this is an Ibanez rg470. So you've got Japanese, is it 2003 or 2002? 2003. You've got the 24 frets, you've got the Floyd Rose, you've got the wizard neck, you get the locking things. All that. See, I really fancy a really good guitar. I'm a beginner on the guitar. I think I might buy one of these. And do you recommend it? And I had to say no. And I know it's like, you kind of don't want to be told that. He'd heard that, a Floyd Rose can be a problem, but he's quite patient and he's going to play it every day. And you're like, it's. I can understand the intention, but there is a possibility you're just going to end up. I mean, a lot of people just absolutely will not even think about buying something with a Floyd Rose on it because of the experience they had with a guitar that had a Floyd Rose on it. So the beginner thing, I mean, that's talking about, not just on the other side a little bit. If you have to have a Floyd Rose, then something like the one on this which is a higher up range one that's quite simple, and touch wood, this one works really well, and when you set them up, but you need to be able to set them up, and it's not even a case of, you need to be able to maintain it. You can't just, it's not a case of, it's set up, it's playing fine, and I'll just play it like a normal guitar for a couple of years and it'll still be fine. Will it? Might be. Are you using the same strings? There's a lot of things that can mess about with it, and also, if you don't know what you're doing, you might break it. I've had plenty of Floyd Roses. The reason they're knackered is because people have tried to adjust the Allen key things using the wrong Allen key, or try to use a screwdriver, or they've not taken the tension off the strings and stripped it, and all these things. So I mean, ultimately, if I had a choice of a Floyd Rose or no Floyd Rose, I wouldn't take it. I've got it on this guitar because because of what it is, which I understand if your thing is playing, the Vine, the Satriani, or stuff. But as a beginner guitar, no. Even if it comes to the point of not really appreciating it. I mean, I remember that when I started playing the guitars, there were folk that would buy expensive guitars they've only been playing for 6 months, and you can tell by looking at it. You don't need to be able to play the guitar. You can look at some of these. If you looked up close at that, you would be like, "Oh, it's really pretty." It's good just by looking at it, regardless of whether you play the guitar or anything. You can tell expensive stuff. I mean, if someone shows you, I don't know, think of inanimate object you can get good and not go, bikes. I don't really know anything about bikes, but you could show me a bike, what, £150 or something for a cheap bike, and you can show me one at £1,000, and there's no way I'm not going to know just by looking at them which one's the expensive one, and which one's better and all that. But if you can't ride a bike, you can't ride a bike. Yeah, analogies out the window. Also, the necks on these are not. I think this is my second attempt at owning an RG. Technically, well, it was actually the Paul Gilbert one I bought first, but that's the same attempt. I had one about 10 years ago. It was a hardtail one, and I just wasn't. It was the same. So the same neck, it was a hardtail. That's basically the one I would recommend if you really need an Ibanez RG. That's the one I would recommend. Get the hardtail. It was an RG MH321, an Indonesian one. Hardtail, 2 humbuckers with a 5-way switch. This neck, or a similar type thing. And it was too much for me because it was too weird feeling. Very fast and not like other guitars. And I think in order to really play an RG properly, you've kind of got to be quite good on the guitar to start with. It's much, much easier to play other guitars. Telecasters, for some reason. Telecasters are the one, if you were... I know it doesn't suit you if you've got the, shoes like these, and the hair, and a bit more spandex than I've got on, then obviously it has to be this. But there is something about the Telecaster's just easy, and there's a few Ibanez RG models that are like that. There's one of my favourite Ibanez ever, my pal, he owns it. It's like, it was a sort of sparkly glitter purple or green, I can't remember which colour it was, but it was basically that 321 I had. It's a 300 series maybe. So decent hardtail, you know, just kind of like what you get on a, none of these guitars have. It's kind of like a, if you imagine just like a Strat thing, but it's not a tremolo, it's just a bent piece of metal. So it's pure, super easy. Changing strings, not a problem. What to do, drop D, no issues at all. All these things are fantastic on those guitars. All those things screw up this. If you know what you're doing and you're willing to put the extra effort into, you know, like the Formula One car, you don't just, you can't park a Formula One car in the drive and then take it to the shops. You need to have folk heating up the tyres and changing the oil every 10 miles and all that stuff. There's an element of that to this, you know. And also, is it as great for, it's just not, it's harder to play because maybe it's got thin strings on it and the low action and all that stuff, but the thin neck. Is it the other option I gave is that, should I buy the 470? I can't remember, was it €500 or €600 or something like that? Also, I don't know, he was in Europe somewhere, so it's not going to be the same, not able to get exactly the same guitars as I can. But it's one of these second hand for 500, and the other one he was looking at, I think it was brand new, and it was 400, and it was like the Indonesian one, and it's like, but it had a Floyd Rose on it, and it's like, don't buy that one. So I'd buy that, the 470 for 500 and something over a cheaper one, because Floyd Rose's, most people who have bad experiences with Floyd Roses, it's not generally more expensive guitars, it's generally cheaper ones which have got, you know, the actual Floyd Rose thing is the same, it's just that the parts aren't made as well, you know, it cost a tenth as much to build, so the screws kind of, because there's so many bits, if one of them's out, the whole thing goes weird, and then you get, even if you go back 20 years or more than that, when I started playing, my first guitar was a Yamaha rg470. So okay, this is my third attempt at a guitar like this, and I hated it. I played it because it worked, whereas it was the only guitar I had, so I did force myself to play it, but I hated every minute of it. So it'd just be that whole thing about being a beginner. The most important thing is to play a guitar that you really like. And I get that you would really like the idea of playing one of these, but they're just not. The Floyd Rosey, the Lucky Clampy, the super thin neck. The other thing he was talking about as well is that up here, to just buy the blah 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 and then upgrade the pickups, and it's like that happens with all Ibanez guitars. You don't need to upgrade the pickups in Ibanez guitars. Generally, we all do, but it's not. You keep seeing like blah 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 Geo, and then I put pickups in it, and you're like, why didn't you just buy the more? I would rather than spend £200 on a Geo than £150 in pickups. I'd rather spend £350 on the guitar. Timor Duncans ain't all what they're cracked up to be. This has got 3 in it. There you go. It's more important to get a better guitar with decent pickups, and all Ibanez come with decent pickups. They're all good. They're all, maybe if you're mad into the pure super heavy metal, then you know your Korn and stuff like that. They maybe don't do that, but they'll be all right at doing that, but they're not designed for that. So you could get the type of pickups, EMGs, that are designed for that. Okay, I get that. But it's like when the pickups you get is stock of these sort of things, you're pretty much good. They're going to do. They're not going to be absolutely fantastic at anything, but they're going to do everything. You can play the Beatles. You can play, you know, Hendrix. You can do all of that in the middle, but you're not stuck with a guitar that only does the Beatles and Hendrix and can't. You kind of do everything. But I think it's maybe just because they're so modular and people like to swap things out. I mean, everyone always puts their heroes. I think maybe it's partly the hero worship thing as well with these guitars. You know, people, it's like, I play this guitar because Steve Vai plays one, which that's never really got to me. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the way my brain works. I wanted an SG. More to the point, I got one. I got this one. That's why I've never bought another one, because this was what I wanted. I wanted an SG, and it's like, yes, Tony Iommi used one. He's one of my favourite guitarists, and Black Sabbath's my favourite band. But it's not because it was Tony Iommi's guitar. Also, it was Robbie Krieger, and it's in the Beatles, and it's on the Get Your Yayas Out album cover, and blah blah blah, all that stuff. But all those things could also be said true of a Les Paul. But I don't like the look of them. This is before I even played the guitar. I always thought the SG looked cool. So yeah, I get it. And even even going from that point, as I said, my first guitar was actually a strap or a warp neck that you could only play above the 5th fret. And then 6 months later, I got that Yamaha rg470, which was pretty much like this. Slightly copyright infringing, a wee bit not as pointy and a wee bit pointier, and but basically this guitar. Not a cheap one either, like a £300 one in the 90s, so a £600 equivalent guitar now, and a Yamaha as well, so a really good one. But I hated that guitar. I was the whole time playing Sabbath and stuff on a pointy 80s shred thing. It was awful. When I actually got the SG, no, it wasn't that one, it was the Epiphone one I got first. It took me a couple of years to get the Gibson. Still got that one, and it was really weird. It was so thin and light, and I remember just changing the strings, and it was like, what? That's all you have to do? All you do is put them through there and do that? Oh my god, this is amazing. But it really took me a while to get used to it, but because I'd already decided I liked it before I even played it. Maybe why I like SGs. But get one that you're happy with. Dude, I just think, I also, well, do you say don't buy something new? Because you're going to lose the money on it. If any of your if you know somebody that plays the guitar and can help you buy it, definitely going into a shop and trying these things is definitely a better way of doing it. I know you might save a bit of money or not get the colour you want or all that, but it's like when you're not really, especially when you're a beginner guitarist. When I played 6 months on a guitar that didn't play below I thought chords were too hard for me. It just so happened that my pal had left a Black Sabbath book over it one night, and I'd learned how to play power chords, so I could play power chords. But you couldn't play open chords because it was all buzzing and ringing. I didn't know why it was doing that. Probably just needed adjusted, but I didn't know that. I just assumed I was shite at playing the guitar. So that's the thing about getting a guitar that's ultimately the best beginner guitar. That Fasley one I just sold last week or the week before was amazing. That was exactly what you want. It was a wee bit cool, especially once I put the pickups with the coil split in it, and it did everything. You're like, and it was really light. It was really loud. It was twice the volume of this guitar when it was played unplugged, and all that. You can actually hear the Floyd Rose going brrr. There, just you hit it. It's got a brrr that goes on. So, no, ultimately the answer to the question was, even though it's taken me 15 minutes, there you go, is I wouldn't recommend buying one of these if you're a beginner, no. But I would take it over the Indonesian one. You can get a used Japanese one. Assuming it plays well, get somebody else who knows what they're talking about to help you choose it. But if you're really sold on the Ibanez RG thing, I would get the 2 humbucker hardtail 300 and something series guitar, because that will be a rock solid one. You can play that every day for a year or a couple of years, and then once you start getting the hang of playing the guitar, you can get one of these and you'll notice that it's a good guitar, rather than being uneducated. Do you know what I mean? Giving someone who's played for 6 months a Gibson and an Epiphone, they're not going to be able to appreciate the fact that the Gibson's 1.5% better, which is what you're paying for. And it's kind of, if you don't understand it, it's like you can go, oh, I don't like the sound of this. Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't really. Okay, it'll sound better if you had better pickups and you did that. But really, you've got to be able to play a chord properly and controllably. Yeah, but I mean, everyone's got different tastes in guitars anyway, so because I can fix them and I do a wee bit of swapping about and wheeling and dealing and stuff like that, I tend to like ones that are a bit more, what I think are more interesting, but other people find having 6 Les Pauls in slightly different colours more interesting than having 6 different guitars, which is fine. And it's like, there is a taste thing, and it's like, it doesn't really matter if I tell you, the best guitar to start with is a Telecaster, because I don't know anyone who's Telecaster's one of those ones that people don't tend to like at first. they don't want, when you first buy a guitar, you're not going to buy a Telecaster. I want the crappy looking one. No, I want this. I want the one with the whammy bar and 3 pickups. Is it 2 pickups? Is it a square? No, they look crap. I don't like that. And then it's not until you've played, you end up getting a shot at one 5 years later, or you start getting into it on the guitar, you know, the point where you're kind of at that point of going, right, I'm playing the guitar for the rest of my life sort of thing. And then you get a shot of a telly and it's like, oh, right, and then suddenly, you know, you got to love a telly. The best guitar ever made. But I do get it. If I'd had a telly as my first guitar and I was playing Sabbath and, well, the Stones would have been fine, but the telly would have been fine as my first guitar. But I know I would have wanted the humbucker, even though I didn't really know what that meant when I was playing through my wee 10-watt amp. I would have wanted the humbucker for the heavy metal sound because I like heavy metal. Yeah, and I think the other thing is it's just try not to get too gear obsessed. You know, it's like all the great guitars. Hendrix never really had any of these things, so it's like you don't need fractal audio, blah blah blah, delay and all that sort of crap. If you really want effects, even the sort of, even something like a Squire Katana or something that has the effects in it, and unless you're really good on the guitar, does it really make any difference? I remember just trying out for so many bands, or when I was starting out, the latest thing was these multi-effects units, and people would spend, I knew a couple of folk or a couple of bands I tried out for, it would spend, you know, the whole night. So I was all last night working on the guitar for getting in the studio, like, oh, brilliant, you pure nailed a pure amazing bit for it. It was a bit strummy and shit. And basically what they'd spent all night was setting up their pedal. So they would come in and it'd be like, oh, what do you think of this sound? And you're like, see if you just spent how to actually, instead of going, you know, you were kind of, which is what you wanted to sound like, and just like, yeah, it's not, you don't need all the effects. I like not having any effects. I like a distortion pedal and the amp, but that's because I'm old school and a snob. And saying that, the Ibanez Geos are really good as well. I had one, and actually from the same guy, the one I really like. It had like a mad graphic on it, one humbucker. It was just a Geo something. It like, did it have tiger, like scratches, like as fret markings or something like that, or like a skull on it. I can't remember. It was pretty funky looking anyway. That was a great wee guitar. All the solid, but I would probably get one with the 2 pickups. Just you've got to be playing the guitar for ages to be able to play, you know, a guitar with 1 pickup, really. So you can actually do other things. Once you know how to make different sounds by playing it differently rather than just selecting. Yeah, so my point with the effects is I'd rather, you're better not having them when you're starting out, I think. Just don't spend more time. Don't spend more time looking up guitars on the internet, reading reviews and stuff like that, than you do actually playing the guitar. This is different because you can play the guitar while you're watching telly. Get used to doing that as well, especially things like this where it's like totally, it's not gripping and you don't need to have any brain to operate on it. Like watching Star Trek. Watch the Star Trek, play the guitar. Brilliant. Watch a film that you've actually got to think about. You can't play the guitar at the same time. Or you end up just either playing the guitar or watching the film. You can't do both. But I mean, to be honest, I would never. I use the Floyd Rose because it's there. Any sort of tremolo. Don't need it. And for beginners, it's one of the big points of the fact that everyone who buys a first guitar, it's always, I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but in Britain, it's a Strat. 90% of guitars are Strats or Strat copies. Especially what ones that, you know, under £100 second hand sort of thing, they're all Strats. And it's not sensible. But that's the one kids want first. Because the thing is, if you go and buy, you look up a Squire, whatever is it, the Sonic, the new cheapest one, 130 quid or whatever it is. The telly and the Strat are the same price, right? Oh, it doesn't really matter which one you buy. Right, try and find the telly second hand. And it'll be £100, but the Strat's worth 60. Because people tend to keep tellies. But it's just, I think the whole thing with the tremolo arm, it's a bad thing, because somebody gets it, even if you get one that's been set up so it's floating and staying in tune, blah, blah, blah. You've played your first guitar, you've been clamping in those strings, battering them and never tuning it and never cleaning it. And the strings are a year old, you put new strings on it, the trem's moved. So you end up hardtailing it, but that's not the action it was set to. So, and then you just end up with chaos, whereas in a Telecaster, it doesn't have that. You take the strings off and you put new ones on, nothing moves. It doesn't really matter whether you put thicker strings on or thinner strings on, really, with a hardtail. And the same with the simplicity thing. I mean, if you put different, you don't even need to be a different gauge. You could put 10s, but these are Ernie balls. I'll put 10s from Roto Sound or something on it. Just because the first string's a 10, they might be different strings in the middle. You get like a 10 to 46, or it could be a 10 to 38 with the fattest string. And then if it's the different one, this thing's moving. It's totally literally it's on a knife edge for being into the body and unplayable, whether the strings are sitting flat in the fretboard, or the strings are an inch off the fretboard and you can't play it. So it's a real balancing act. And patience is part of it, I suppose, to set it up, but it's more just experience. But just make sure you can actually use it, because if you can't and have any sort of control over it, there's no point in having it. I'm not saying I'm a Floyd Rose user. I can use it a wee bit. See, I'm hitting wrong notes everywhere. See, I'm just demonstrating to there, because it's alright on the guitar, and I'm really showing you how shite it sounds when you're not fucking amazing at playing with a Floyd Rose. I mean, you can always go. Don't know, but I bet you half the folk that watch this channel just hate a Floyd Rose, because they've had experiences of it. So no, don't Floyd Rose if you're a beginner. Just in any way. I do get the point you said is what you quite fancies having a really nice guitar. Yeah, but I mean, I think you don't need to buy one guitar. Guitars don't take up that much room. You can have buying one that you're going to play, one that you're not worried about taking out. Like, say if you bought the £150 Geo or whatever it is, the hardtail RG, you can put stickers on it. Do you want to make it yourself? Or you can maybe try upgrading the pickups if you want to, or you can, but yeah, then you can take it round to your pal's house and then play it and drink and take it to, you're not sitting there going like that, it's a £600 guitar, don't drop it, you know what I mean? If you're looking after it, you can treat it a bit more like shit. And then once you've played that for a year, get yourself one of these, and then you'll be able to appreciate how much better, like a £1,000 guitar is than a £300 guitar. If you've played it for a while, you will get it. You're not really going to be able to appreciate it if you've never played either of them, or never played a lot of guitars. What a load of rubbish. Anyway, rock on. Catch you later.